My name is Danny Banchev. I'm the founder of the Off Porn Academy. I went from jerking off 5 times per day on average to being porn free for years. And today I will share with you how I desexualized my brain using the dopamine system. So in the next few minutes, we'll be separated into 3 different sections. Section number 1, I'm gonna ask you a few questions so that you can discover how that dopamine system has already been doing its job in your own life. Section number 2, we're gonna talk about the foundation of it, the principle behind it. I'm also gonna share with you a pretty crazy story, more of a study actually, that proves how important this system is. And then section number 3, we're gonna cover 3 action steps you can take today to trick your brain to like doing hard stuff. All right, so let me ask you a few questions. What is the longest you have ever managed to stay off porn? 2 days? 2 weeks? 2 months, 2 years? Did you notice how stuff that was supposed to be boring actually started gradually not being that bad after all? Listen, I'm a pretty messy person. We're talking piles of clothes on the floor. My parents actually thought it was just a teenage phase, but I'm starting to think it's more of a lifetime phase. With that being said, I remember just randomly getting urges to clean my room. Like I would just feel a sudden inspiration, and when it was done, I would actually even call my parents to see the result of my random inspiration. Well, turns out it wasn't that random after all. It was actually directly correlated with a specific system in my brain. Now, to paint an even clearer picture for you, I want you to remember last time you let yourself fully indulge in a whole lot of porn. Like that last time you truly got a few rounds in. What happened after? How did you feel about studying for your next exam? Or getting up and doing some cold calls? Or maybe cooking a healthy meal? All of a sudden, almost every good thing feels pretty dreadful, doesn't it? Let me tell you, you're not alone, my brother. There's a very specific reason for it. Let's talk about the dopamine system. Dopamine is not about the pursuit of happiness. It is about the happiness of pursuit. This is a quote from Dr. Andrew Huberman. Lots of what I'm about to share with you, I've learned from him. So shout out to the Huberman Lab podcast. Check it out. #1 health podcast in the world. So here's what you got to understand. Literally every action we take is driven by dopamine. Like, remove dopamine from your brain and you will become no more useful than a fucking carpet. Matter of fact, there was a study that was done on mice where researchers literally removed dopamine from their brain. They completely depleted the levels of dopamine. Here's the fascinating thing. The mice didn't lose their capacity to move, technically. What they did lose was their motivation to move, their motivation to seek out food or any important activity that they used to do regularly. They literally only ate food that was directly placed in their mouths. And here's the craziest part. When researchers placed the food only a few centimeters away from them, they were so unmotivated to even move a few centimeters to eat that they ended up dying of starvation. Moral of the story, dopamine is pretty fucking important. That's what I meant when I said it's behind every single action we take. Learning to become a master at managing the different levels of dopamine in your brain will completely, fundamentally enhance the quality of your life. Despite what a lot of people seem to be thinking, dopamine was never the problem. Matter of fact, it has been conditioned into our brains to drive evolution forward. Progress triggers dopamine. That's why we feel so happy when we experience personal evolution. The real problem here is cheap dopamine. The problem is in the modern lifestyle that makes incredibly high levels of pleasure available with insanely low amounts of effort, like porn, drugs, social media, video games, fast food, television, and so on. That's when progress starts to feel boring, and that's when you're fucked. After all, why would you put so much effort into progress where you can get the same amount of pleasure or more with much less effort? Your brain is not stupid. Matter of fact, it wouldn't make sense for it. From a biological perspective, your brain has been designed to always take the path of least effort. That's why in the 21st century, our only key out of slavery, of modern slavery, is awareness. That's it. We have no other choice than to be aware and disciplined about that stuff and to drastically reduce consciously the amount of cheap dopamine we get. That's it. You cannot fight the laws of nature if you don't have any desire to do something whatsoever, you won't do it. The only way you progress is by making it desirable. The only way you make it desirable is by allowing your brain to associate natural levels of dopamine to it. The only way you allow your brain to get back to this natural state is by drastically reducing all cheap and overstimulating sources of dopamine. You have to understand this. Not only is your brain naturally wired for success, it's part of the laws of the universe. The universe wants you to succeed. It wants you to drive human evolution forward. Plus, you're also living in the greatest time in history in terms of tools. Like, success is more accessible than ever. We have ChatGPT, we have social media, like, it's right there at your fingertips. Yet, paradoxically, that's the exact reason why it's also the easiest time in history to do nothing. So here's the thing, your only job is to align yourself with your brain's natural power and to make its job easier. That's it. Do that and the world is yours. So here are 3 steps on how to trick your brain to like doing hard stuff. Step number 1, make a list of all of your daily pleasurable habits. Once it's done, place them on what I call the quadrant of pleasures. So on the top left, you have high pleasure, high effort. So building a business, getting in shape, like that type of stuff that on the long term is so fulfilling. Yet it takes so much effort. Let's call it purpose. Then on the top right, you have low pleasure, high effort. That's the boring stuff like washing the dishes, doing your laundry, cleaning your room. On the bottom left, you have high pleasure, low effort. Like that's the stuff we want to get rid of, the cheap pleasure, porn, social media, fast food, television, cheap entertainment, that type of stuff. And bottom right, you have low pleasure, low effort. That's the essential part, like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, although that's a lot of pleasure. Anyways, going to the bathroom type stuff. So the ultimate goal here is to minimize cheap pleasure, maximize purpose, delegate boring stuff, and only do what's most essential. Now, the last 2, maybe a little bit later, like delegating cooking and all that stuff when you have a private chef. That's once you do a whole lot of the purpose stuff, so building a business, right? Making money, financial freedom. So for now, let's focus on the 2 most important ones. Minimizing cheap pleasure, maximizing purpose. So step number 2, minimize cheap pleasure. Besides each one of these habits, note down how often you tend to engage in them. Like once per day, 2 times per day, once every 3 days, so on, you get it. Now here's the key part. Triple that time gap. So if it was once per day, now it's once every 3 days, and then schedule that new time gap in your calendar. Like schedule a moment where you can actually fully let yourself engage in it. It's so counterintuitive, but stay with me. Remember, if it was, let's say, once every 3 days, then now schedule a moment in 9 days. So triple the time gap. Step number 3, maximize purpose. Fill that new gap with purpose. Here's why this counterintuitive approach works. Knowing that you're just delegating that cheap pleasure, not cutting it forever. Your brain can be much more comfortable making a compromise, right? To fill it with more useful, productive, meaningful, beneficial on the long term activities for you. What happens so often is that people get stuck in this cycle where it's like they relapse, they have so much pain, they're like, I'm never gonna do it again. And then they go for a few weeks and then boom, at the worst time ever, they lose control. They feel like their minds have taken over them and then they relapse and then so on, so on. And that's because when the brain feels like it's never gonna get this source of pleasure, it gets into self-sabotage mode. It's ready to do whatever it takes to get that source of pleasure. It's deep, bro. So by delegating that cheap pleasure, you're hacking the system. You're tricking your brain into being like, oh, okay, we're gonna get it one day. Doesn't matter, right? And then you can progressively start widening the gap between the cheap pleasures and then filling that space with more and more purpose until eventually delayed gratification will become so easy that cheap pleasure will almost shrink into irrelevance. That's what we're looking for here. The point is for that stuff to hold the least amount of space in your consciousness. That's when you know you're healed. That's when you know you've actually achieved progress. Not when all you're thinking about is that and you're fighting the urges and you're resisting and you're all there praying. It's when you genuinely do not give a single fuck about it 99% of the time. Remember, you are way better consciously making the choice to masturbate every few days than to unconsciously lose control and relapse every few weeks. Trust me, your self-image and your mental health will be thanking you. All right, my people, that was all for me today. Hopefully, as counterintuitive as it is, it still helped you see a different perspective, and hopefully you're gonna try it out. Trust me, you have nothing to lose. Worst case scenario, you come back to what you are right now, which if you watch this video until the end, it means you don't feel fully in control, so try it out. By the way, whenever you're ready, there are 2 more ways I can help you. Number 1, if you prefer learning by reading, then you'll be happy to hear that this video you just watched is only 1 out of 3 lessons I shared in this week's newsletter called the Triple Wisdom Wednesday. So every week I share 3 lessons that can help you progress faster with less pain. It takes less than 15 minutes to read. It's completely free. So if you want to sign up, the link is in the description. Or if you prefer learning by watching videos, then this is the right place to be. You can subscribe. I'll be very grateful. Now, the second way I can help you is that if you're a man and you're ready to unlock your fullest potential instead of settling for cheap pleasure, then you can join the #1 divine brotherhood in the world right now. It's called the Off Porn Academy. So the link is in the description as well. Other than that, thank you all so much for listening. I'm so grateful for y'all. Much love, take care, and I'll see you here soon. Bye-bye.